Greetings, geeks. Welcome to episode 495 of Geeks in Space. I'm Rob Commander Taco Malda, and joining me on this lovely Friday, I have two of the finest geeks that you're ever going to meet. Yes, that's right. I have Chris DeBona.
Hi, everybody.
And Rob Roseboom.
I'm one of the finest.
The one of the world's finest?
I don't know if it's, Grass Lake's finest, this podcast's finest, the world. I'm not sure.
You're definitely top 3 on this podcast. In fact, I'll go so far as to say top 2.
I just know that in some segment, I'm the finest. That's it.
I buy that. So it sounds like none of us got to Star Trek Upper Decks or Lower Decks, whatever the Rick and Morty thing is.
Yeah, Lower Decks.
Star Trek Rick and Morty.
Star Trek Rick and Morty decks.
I guess Monday.
I don't know.
Listen, we didn't talk about this because it was during my vacation and there was an intermittent schedule of the most important podcast in the world. When the first things came out, it looks awful. I am not optimistic going into it that it's going to be good or redeemable in any way, shape, or form, and I'm dreading watching it. I'll watch it for Monday, and we can talk about it, but I gotta tell you, it looks just like everything I hate about modern animation.
Yeah, and I can't figure out why there's a cat alien. I'm unfamiliar with what the cat race is in Star Trek.
And I'm not a Trek fundamentalist, I should point out. Like in Battlestar Galactica when they replaced when they turned what's his name into Katie Sackhoff. That was great. They executed the hell out of that show and that character. So I don't mind them messing with canon a little bit, but this is just my nerd heart is outraged.
I hear you.
I want to hear more from Mr. Roseboom about his cats.
He doesn't have cats.
I interrupted him.
I don't have cats.
No, about the cat alien. Because I interrupted you.
What?
It's okay, man. It's okay. It's early. I don't know. I feel like okay. Have you ever seen the thing where the Robot Chicken guys produced a computer animated TV series called Star Wars Detours for Lucas that they never actually released?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Okay, it was pretty friggin' terrible. Like the clips that have leaked out, they are not good. And I say that as somebody who watched all the Star Wars Robot Chicken episodes and liked those just fine. They're self-aware. They're Robot Chicken, but they're also making fun of and enjoying playing, with the toys of their youth. And I can respect that. I made the same jokes, and I still do. But I don't know about this detour or this the Star Trek thing. But hey, I'll watch it. Maybe episode 1 will be garbage. Maybe it'll be okay. Scalzi tweeted that he knows some of the writers and has high hopes. But I feel like Scalzi says that about a lot of stuff.
It's probably true, too. The reality is, I would love to give it a chance. And I'll give it a chance. I'll watch it. And if there's anything redeemable, I'll be like, oh, well, that was redeemable. But I just, here's the thing, right? John's a really nice person, right? And the reality is when you meet people in these circles who are writers for these shows, you want to like the show. You absolutely want to like the show. I mean, I really wanted to like Discovery, and I actually liked season 1 fine, right? Once I got past the first couple episodes, right? I loved what they did with Lorca and the rest. I thought it was really, really neat. But season 2, it was a slog. And I know some of the writers on that show, and I want to like it. I just can't. And there's a point where your taste has to win out over your friendship. And hey, I've worked on some stuff that is absolutely crap, right? And I'm happy to go down a list of things that I've worked on that did not work out at all. I mean, so all of us have, right? Sure. So
I think so. This is also, when we talk about this sort of thing, we're talking about the hindsight problem. You compare, if you're going to compare an episode, and I'm not talking about an episode of a TV show that's hanging off of a franchise that's existed for our entire lifespan. I'm talking about literally any TV show. Literally every single TV show that you're going to watch right now is going to be compared to every single TV show you've ever watched. And you don't like, I don't spend a lot of time thinking about Chips, or Airwolf. I remember like 3 things from each of those shows, and I enjoy the 3 things that I remember from those shows. So a show, if you were to remake Airwolf or Chips today, you would be comparing Airwolves and Chips today with like the 3 things that I loved when I was 10. And I think that that's the unfair thing.
Yeah.
Like one of these Star Trek shows too, like I like the Next Generation. I'm a Next Generation guy, and I'm a big fan of like 4 of the movies. Most of the rest of Star Trek is questionable. And there's good stuff in every season. There's good in every season of every one of those shows. I've found stuff that I've enjoyed, and I've watched it all, and I'm sure that the same will be said about this. But it's unfair because even if you go back and watch Star Trek, The Next Generation, the greatest of the Star Trek series, a lot of those shows are garbage. But you don't think about the garbage. You think about like what was it? The World's Finest, or what was that? What was the 2-parter with the Borg? Best of both worlds.
Best of both worlds, right? So
You think you're comparing it against that because that's where your mind goes to first. It's the dominant emotion connected to the franchise, and it sucks. But also, I have a strong suspicion that if you take Star Trek and make a 20-minute cartoon out of it, it's going to be garbage. They made of the Star Trek Discovery shorts that they've made, I've really enjoyed like 3 of the 8.
yeah, I'd say that's fair. Yeah,
And none of the ones that I enjoyed were animated.
yeah. I don't know. I don't want to be like that nerd, but it's just like I'm dreading watching Lower Decks. I just they've been so disappointing for so long, in the Star Trek thing.
There's pros and cons for writing anything for a franchise, right? Anything new, that is. And so you have all this back canon, you have story that you can go through and develop later if you want, if you know it well enough and everything. But if you're going to make a big left turn, like make it animated and make it a comedy, it's got to be great. Even mediocre people are going to hate it just because it's so different. So they have a big hurdle to overcome, and maybe they will.
I mean, I guess my hope is that if they leaned hard enough into the Rick and Morty thing, like into that level of humor, you could probably make something fun. But I have a feeling they won't. They'll only lean enough into the comedy to make it like a crappy Family Guy level comedy. But I'll watch it. And maybe we'll talk about it on Monday. Vint Cerf put a nice story up about confidential computing. I have a big eyebrow raised as I read it, but that's just me.
What was your eyebrow? The Google Cloud commercial that was inherent in it, or
it for me? Okay, the problem is about motivation and incentive, and with all due respect, the major cloud providers have massive incentives to erect steeper and steeper walled gardens. They have massive incentives. Okay. They have massive incentives to secure their infrastructures to the best of their abilities. But the reality is that I think that the leaks, the security risks, and the vulnerabilities that exist within the major cloud providers are in most cases intentional. They are done legally, and they are done under frameworks that are legal, but I would personally regard them as unethical.
So I would say that there's what the law requires, and so like for instance, suppose you have a confidential VM at a cloud provider. The idea is that so if you can afford that, right? Suddenly, if we get a subpoena from the United States government for data or whatever for that server, all we can hand them is the secured bundle of crap that you can't unpack unless you have the key. Sure. Right? And that key would belong to the person who purchased that confidential VM, right? And so the thinking here is that, listen, we get people are uncomfortable with, having even support access databases and the rest. So that's great. So basically then the deal becomes, all right, so if you lose these keys, you're boned because we can't help you. And then the question of, so I don't hold much weight, at least for my erstwhile employer, on the the leaks and the rest, because I know how careful we are about that. But yeah, it's so the thing, what I thought you were going to say, Rob, was that this is obviously our play to make people comfortable with hosting data outside of a given sovereign nation. So that's what I thought you were going to say, right? Which is probably true. Because sure. There's a ton of data locality rules coming up, and I have to tell you, when a nation, I don't know, like Iceland of 300,000 people says, well, we can only host data about our citizens in our country, it's like, all you're doing is you're shutting yourself off from the internet.
Yeah, it's a hard problem.
So it's like, so that's where I thought you were going to go.
No, my problem is that this is a red herring, because the actual issue is that if malicious government agencies want the information, they already have backdoors in data centers, and they already have pre-existing paths directly to the people that they need to get the information with or without a subpoena. Depending on the level of trust that you think that the corporation has. I mean, I guess
all I would say is not ours. Not ours. Okay?
Of course, you would say that, and you might believe that, and you might be right. But I don't know that, and I don't believe that. I think that all of the providers have done things if you're over 1 million users, you've done something that I personally would think is immoral. Just a broad guess. Now, I draw a harder line than most, and you might be following the letter of the law. But that said, the government's got packet sniffers in all the data centers. I mean,
no,
I believe that.
We can agree to disagree.
That's fair. Now, whether or not the packets that they're able to get are valuable or decryptable or whatever, I think they can get them. I think that Snowden proved that the United States is not really all that much better than China in any of these regards. And
so let me tell you about that slide, the one where he put up the list of all the places that the NSA was sniffing with their dumb programs. That was a marketing slide. That was someone selling the NSA a bill of goods. Okay, this is and frankly a very expensive bill of goods, because we had. So the only thing that we had at the time, this was 10 years ago, was they said that they were sniffing the fibers between our data centers, which is the only real vulnerable, link that they could access, because it's in the middle of the country, right? And so, basically, both because of that report, and we were going to do it anyways, we started encrypting even the communications between our data centers. Right. So it's like, so if they had even sniffed back then, though, all the traffic for like the storage systems that we were using, the database systems we were using was encrypted in flight. Right. So anyway, I don't want to talk. So they could have done traffic analysis that would have been moderately interesting, but it would have been such a big distance to turn that into an actual exploit.
All I'm saying is they're getting the data. They're getting the data from somewhere. The leaks come out about the kinds of things that they're tracking, the various metadatas on the emails, the metadatas on this and that. The stuff that we are aware of is the stuff that happened 10 years ago. And I don't think that governments with control, with power and access willingly give that up. And I think they tend to expand. And I think that they have very, very potent levers that they can pull with multinational corporations, and I have no reason to believe that that things wouldn't be worse today than they would have been 10 years ago.
Well, let me say it a different way. The things you're worried about from our government, okay, one, should be addressed by changing our government, and two, if they're that powerful, they actually don't need to insert stuff inside the data centers, because they're already messing with you personally. This is the thing about the Chinese government that people don't talk about. It's like, just use VPN, you'll be fine. It's like, no, then you get a visit. Then that's a whole different level of harassment, right? It's like, if they're not already in your personal machine, it's not a big jump for them just to walk through your front door and say, you're going to be using this computer in this way from now on.
Of course.
I mean, that's real oppression. It's like, the American government is happy to use no-knock warrants and the rest to come and get whatever they want. They don't.
But I think that this is a false. I think this is a false argument, Chris, because I think what you're saying is because they can do much worse things, the fact that they're doing these minor things aren't that big of a deal. And I think
I'm saying they do more direct.
They do more direct things on individual incidents. Absolutely. Yeah. But they also do minor, I don't know, let's call them microaggressions. Let's call them micro violations of your civil liberties. And I think that happens. And I think that every single provider of more than a certain scale has done things that. Chris, if I read any,
we went to court. We've been harassed for the last 12 years because we refused the Bush administration's access to us. Sure, the other providers, I'm not going to defend them, but I got to tell you, this is something that's really important to me. It's like, yeah.
So, I mean, again, I'm not asking you to defend your particular employer, but I think that you had a couple of very moral people making some very good decisions for a very long time. And I don't necessarily think that those people are making any decisions anymore.
I'm still there, damn it.
I'm not saying, and that's the thing is I think that by and large, I think that your particular employer is pretty decent at hiring decent folks that mean well. But I also think that over decades, power tends to corrupt and roadblocks can be put in place that can be solved by just doing a thing that maybe is a little sketch. And I think that, we've read... Over the course of the last decade, there's probably been 100 headlines of things where you'd raise an eyebrow. And maybe half are lies. Maybe 90% are lies, but they're not all lies. And I think that that's not you particular, that's not your employer particular. I think that's probably every network that manages to get 1 million users. It's no different than TikTok. I'm sure that they've done something shady.
I'm going to put this back onto you. Mm-hmm. There was a time when Slashdot had more than 1 million users.
Yeah.
Right. So was it Uriah who was the actor? I mean, who was the bad guy serving up our users?
I know of incidents that made me uncomfortable, and as I would like to point out, I no longer work there, and there were reasons.
Yeah.
Now,
okay.
That's what it comes down to, I suppose. But I'm also naturally a distrusting person. I have a lot of skepticism about power and its corrupting forces.
All right, I'll admit it. I was the bad guy.
That explains
Sorry.
it. That explains it.
Let me ask you a different question.
All right.
Do you have any proof that the pens that you send out don't have little microphones on them?
Oh, they do. They 100% do.
Oh, 100% do. Okay.
Yeah.
I'm picturing the 1 or 2 listeners who have pens because there's probably an overlap. Are like, son of a, and they're like taking them apart.
Probably, yeah. They go right in. The problem is that if I had the technology to put little bugs like rice grain sized bugs in my pens, I would totally do it.
Yeah.
No, you wouldn't.
That's why I only keep my Rob Mulder pins in the
This is how QAnon got started, people joking like this.
That's true. The QAnon was actually formed by people talking about Rob's pens and the grain of rice-sized trackers that he embeds within them.
I got to tell you though, Vince Cerf is the OG amazing person.
He's legit.
I don't know if you've ever had a chance to meet him. He's have you ever been next to somebody and you're talking with them and you realize they're not just smarter than anyone you've ever met before, but they're just like super neat, super nice. Just, he's not vainglorious at all. He's just remarkable. I adore that man.
I mean, we had the good fortune of spending so many years getting in touch with so many people from the open source community. And there are so many just legit awesome, The thing that always pisses me off about those things is you go to those conferences and you're like, fart, I'm the dumbest one in this room. And I felt that every time.
Well, that's okay. I don't mind feeling that other people are smarter than me.
No, I don't got a problem with that.
I mean, like I was talking to a bunch of Debian developers on the VC, the Jitsi or whatever the other day. I was reminded how much I like,
Yeah.
you know, this open source world. I was like, man, you know, and I should do this more often, right? Because sometimes I spend too much time talking to these sort of jerky people who are, you know, just like in it for the ego and all the rest. It's like I need to go back to the Debians. I need to go back to like these core open source idealists and remind myself why I do this.
For sure. And that's the thing is that I think that, I mean, I don't know that open source has any one particular character attribute that draws certain caricatures of people to, but it definitely draws really good people, and it also draws some really freaking big time weirdos.
Yeah, you're not kidding.
You know, the folks that deserve to just be canceled, you know, and some of them are good engineers and some of them are just rotten people. But yeah, I mean, my experience was generally most of the people were on the side of nice and on the side of good and on the side of legit trying. And Vint is one of those guys, but also Vint is like, Jesus, he's smart.
He's just so he's a king. He's an emperor of amazingness.
God amongst men.
He is. All right, let's keep going. We have other stories that we got to cover.
Things that are less angsty.
Yeah.
Let's see. Well, so did you watch the Foundation teaser?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Here, share this tab. Whoa, spaceship.
And it's got
spaceship
Chernobyl in it.
over. It does?
Isn't Chernobyl?
You mean the fellow from
Chernobyl. Everybody gets called by the name of the thing, like you know how Umbrella Academy stars Juno. And
it's got this guy who's in a bunch of science fiction nowadays.
Is that Lee Pace?
No, but it's like Lee Pace's younger brother.
Ooh.
Or something. You know, he's very Lee Pace-esque. You know.
No, so I have never read Foundation. I only know it as like my general thing when it comes to.
Lee Pace.
Oh, there we go. My general thing when it comes to classic sci-fi is to ask my wife. Because she has read like almost all the Asimov and Heinlein and all that stuff. And her summary of Foundation was she could only make it like halfway through the first book. And I understand that that's not a unique perspective, but I'm all in to watch it.
I did read all of the Foundation novels.
Even like the crappy ones that he wrote way later?
All of them. Yeah, no, and it's the same thing with Heinlein. Like, you know, I've read the few good ones and the rest of them. But yeah, I admit it, you know, in the hands of the right producers, directors, and actors, this could be astonishing. I don't know if it's going to be. And then here's the problem. They're using David Goyer, right? Oh, and David Goyer is a mixed bag for me.
Sure.
Oh, that's my dread.
I don't know. You get to a certain point in your career, and most people have a mixed bag at that point.
Well, I mean, this is exactly what we were talking about earlier, right? It's like, you know, I've made some crap, you know.
Yeah, for sure. Well, and that's the thing is that if you're a creative, artistic person and you don't make crap sometimes, this means you didn't try.
Yeah, it's true.
I have so many littered short stories laying around that are just garbage. You know, someday I'll get something that I'm actually happy with. Let's see. I mean, it looks good. The teaser doesn't really have a lot in it. It's nice to see some finished special effects shots. The story itself behind it is really cool, and I'm into it. The only thing that I've watched, I think that Apple TV had that I kind of enjoyed was what was the Apollo show?
For All Mankind.
Yeah, I liked that fine, but it was not a home run. It was a hit, but not a home run for me. But I guess I felt that way about season 1 of Umbrella Academy, and season 2 of Umbrella Academy is just like, thank you, you've made everything. That's a gorgeous shot.
I mean, the visuals are gonna. I mean, honestly, in For All Mankind, the effects and the visuals. I mean, you can see where the money's being spent.
Yeah, for sure.
You know, and the thing is also, you know, when I think about like Amazon Prime, you know, the first season, as they were just starting their own original programming, was really rough. It was mixed, to be generous.
What show?
Of the Amazon Prime originals, any of them. You know, I mean, they had some wreck, right? But they really found their legs by the time they did like Good Omens and like Man in the High Castle season 1 is hard.
I like.
It's hard to
yeah,
like.
yeah.
You know?
I did really like. Oh no, that was Hulu. The Stephen King 1963
Oh, I
miniseries.
didn't see that one.
That's actually
I
really
bet you
good.
that was good.
That's really enjoyable.
Mhm.
Is there going to be a crossover with the No, all right, we won't
There
go
should.
But yeah, so maybe this is Apple's year to get its feet under it. I don't know.
Yeah.
You know, so
I mean, I am a nerd, and I am all for Star Trek trying to make an animated Star Trek show, and I'm all for
Right.
somebody trying to take every cool story. And I guess my hope, I read an interesting quote about Foundation, is that the cool thing is that because it's an Apple TV thing, like AI goes from an Asimov story to a Will Smith action movie. You know, that's a jump. And like a lot of the classic sci-fi stories that you read back in the day, like they don't all get turned from Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep to Blade Runner. They usually get turned into something with laser guns and shooting and chase sequences.
Yeah.
And you know, a TV series with some time to breathe. I mean, this is an epic scope kind of story, you know, colonizing foreign worlds and falls of empires and stuff. You need some room to make that work. And I'm glad that companies are trying, that they're willing to do it. I like, what is it, the $1 billion that Amazon is going to put into their Lord of the Rings? What is it? It's going to be a prequel.
I don't know. Yeah, well, this is the thing. I don't. You know,
Yeah,
dude. I mean, hasn't that cookie been licked already?
it's been 20 years, man.
Yeah, but
Because I don't count The Hobbit.
yeah, The Hobbit was rough. I never made it through it. I saw
Really?
the first one, and the other two I just tapered off.
You need to go onto the internet and find the Tolkien cut of The Hobbit.
Tolkien cut of The
Yes.
Hobbit.
They
It's 15 minutes long and it's awesome.
No, it's about 2.5 hours, but it's they took all 3 movies and they cut everything out that's not in the book.
Who is they in this context? Was it Lee
They,
Pace?
it's probably
Was it David
QAnon.
Goyer?
It's QAnon.
It's QAnon.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
The internet.
You know,
Dude,
them.
this is how
Basically, the whole
QAnon got
internet.
started. People joking like this.
That's true. That's true. Well, RAnon will be different.
LOTR non.
GIS Anon.
GIS.
Why is GIS Anon just complaining about Heinlein stories being made over as bad modern action sci-fi?
That said, Star Trek Trooper is fantastic.
For sure.
I've said it for years.
For sure. But again,
Brilliant.
not like it's a response to the original book, not necessarily a making of the original book.
Right. I don't need them to
Right,
be,
they-
word for word compatible reproductions.
Sure.
Absolutely not. I mean, I
Well,
think that'd be a huge mistake. But I want them to be good,
And
and
in
that's
a
what
lot
I
of
worry
ways,
about with that.
in a lot of ways, the movie is almost a complete opposite of the book in that
Yeah.
the tone of the book is very sort of supportive of how they respond to the aliens, right? You know, the mandatory service and stuff like that, and the movie puts that in more of sort of a fascist light. So
Yeah, it does.
It's a direct response in a lot of ways. I don't know. I'll watch it, but you know, I got time on my hands, and if somebody's gonna make a Heinlein book or an Asimov book or really any piece of sci-fi, I'm probably gonna watch it. But I gotta say, I like it better when there's less laser guns and a little bit more story.
But I still need spaceships, though.
Oh, always spaceships
for sure, for sure.
always. So the next one on the list is actually a funny one. Scientists have been renaming genes.
Yes.
Because they format like dates. And I actually, here's my almost totally relevant, immediate, recent thing. Our notes in Space Camp. One of us inserted the date formats, like the timestamps for their notes in a slightly different format. Like, it's annoying, but you go through and you fix it or you don't. But when you have 1 billion gene records to scrub through, that's a problem.
Can we have a discussion about this? So, when you're in VLC and you hit Control T,
okay,
it
that.
gives you a timestamp. Okay, and that's the one I'm gonna use. All right, I'm gonna be stubborn about it, but that's the one because all you have to do is hit Control T, Control C, Control V, bam, and you've got a note. Right?
I'm not
So-
using VLC. I'm watching on my TV. So I don't have a Control
like a,
C.
like a
Control V.
monster.
Like a criminal.
You know what I'll do? I'll create some dumb Excel Google Sheets equation to convert VLC into a proper timestamp that looks like you jerks.
Well, did you see that for the we did one episode and I actually had macroed so I could cut and paste and generate M3U playlist files of all the stop points. That's why there's all those weird columns in those spreadsheets. Yeah. But I had it and it worked. As long as everybody inserted everything in a reasonable order, I could just click through. But then we didn't scrub through the movie and I felt like we weren't having as much fun. So sure, you do that, but I mean, in the grand scheme of things, this isn't a problem. But if you mess up a couple of genes, then the next generation,
that's a problem.
The next generation could grow up with, I don't know, what's a horrible genetic thing, type 1 diabetes or something.
God, no, I'm looking at the most recent, the one from Space Camp, our little notes spreadsheet, and it's like there's my format, there's your format, Taco. There's Zen and there's Nate. Everyone just does their own thing. Actually, Zen does what you do, so that's nice. So you guys are in agreement. So I guess we have
Zen usually leaves his note field essentially blank because he wants to save his joke for the broadcast. I put in there something because otherwise I'm going to forget what it was I wanted to say.
Yeah.
And often I'm not sure exactly what I'm going to say.
Sure.
That's another thing. So.
He's like a jazz musician. He's got a riff, man.
Right.
Totally.
Right.
If
Rob, did you go black again, or are you broadcasting appropriately?
We're broadcasting appropriately, but I might have gone black. Oh yeah, I did. Okay. I did to you, but
yeah, that's okay. That's all
right. I mean, if we were to actually do this like as a production, I would engineer something that had like a fast forward to timestamp function and could just take a spreadsheet as an input or something and then just automate the whole process, which would actually be great because I spend way too much of those episodes like staring intently at a line and scrubbing and fast forwarding backwards, and so I'm not paying attention to the conversation. It would be nice to have that more automated.
I mean, is this a format that will help you do that? Because I'm happy to change.
No, because
I can change, Rob.
Oh, you can grow. You can grow. No, I think that the problem is that what really needs so I feel like there's probably to do it correctly, I think I would need a plugin. And the plugin is basically hold down a button that fast forwards and knows when to stop. And then when you release the button, then it would continue to play. Because the way that we do it is we chit chat, and at some point I make the call that whatever we're gonna say is gonna wrap up soon, and then I start trying to scrub to the next spot, which means I'm not paying attention to that dialogue. I'm paying attention to the stop point. But then sometimes we keep talking, so it should stop, and then I can let go when I think it's time for us to move on to the next topic. There's a way that you could do it with a plugin. But it would be annoying. And it's not.
I don't know, man. So I'm looking at the OBS scripting documentation, which is riveting.
Yes.
Podcasting, just for the record.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, it's there's a path into the OBS core API, which is how you could do all of this.
And there's a new plugin that actually somebody released recently. There's a media controls key binding plugin, so if you actually install the VLC plugin, you can watch a movie embedded in OBS. But originally there were no controls for fast forwarding. It was just basically play and stop. Somebody added controls, so you could script that. But here's the problem, and this is what kills me, is that would work great for people watching on the live stream. It doesn't work for you guys. The only way that I can get the video signal to you guys is to make sure that whatever I'm doing is rendering in Chrome. So it has to basically be a Chrome extension. In order for you to see it, because I'm sharing it through the Hangout, or through the Meet.
Okay.
I could do it, but I don't care that much. I'm not paid.
Well, maybe you should make a Chrome extension that manages your Chrome rendering a little better.
Okay, so the way that you would have to do it is you'd have to write a Chrome extension that would take a column of timestamps out of a spreadsheet and have some sort of button that's fast forward to the next point. And you basically have to press and have some sort of fast forward functionality. But again, it's not just skip to timestamp, because we tried that and it was stupid.
Okay.
Anyway.
All right. Well, I think that this is officially the rat hole episode of Geeks in Space. So
aren't they all?
Do you want to go on to we should really talk about the cool stuff that's
there's this is an interesting story, and if you haven't read it, it's neat, but I think we probably all know it. There's the SpaceX Mars, which looks like an energy drink
beer
can.
Yeah.
And that's actually a neat story because that rocket's supposed to have like 3 engines, and for the test fire they only had 1. So if you watch it, it comes up crooked, and then it stabilizes as it gets up because that 1 engine is aiming, and then it lands neat. And also something lit on fire inside right at the end.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I didn't see that.
Yeah. I don't know if it's visible in that video. It's
3, 2.
Scott Manley, of course, had Scott Manley had a video, and he actually showed some different clips that I don't know that this one had, but it's neat and worth watching. So the Twitter hack guy, his court case got Zoom bombed.
Oh, really?
Yeah. That's pretty great.
Yeah. I didn't actually want to show the linked thing because it's
you don't
pretty
want to actually
profane.
show that, but yeah, it's funny that what was the Second Life one where that was kind of one of the first examples where it wasn't just
where the phalluses came down during a online talk show with the largest real estate agent in Second Life.
Yeah,
that was a good one. You know,
it's funny that the venue changes. But this is
troll
this is
stayed
no
the same.
This is no different than people flooding a Usenet forum in 1988. You know.
Yeah. You're not kidding.
That was the last one that I had on the fun list. There was a few more odds and ends in Discord if we wanted to.
What you got?
Find some stuff.
What you got?
Let's see. Oh, Star Trek Lower Decks. So we've got
the Maori
one.
The Maori story.
And let's see. Oh, there's the NRA thing, which is
I don't
nuts.
know. I mean, I don't know if you want to go down that road.
I mean, all I can say is that I don't know if I said this. I think I said this to you last night, Rob. But it's shocking to me that in this world, that story is the NRA is proclaiming it as a Second Amendment case and not a First Amendment case. Like, that's crazy to me. I mean, I get where your loyalties are, and I guess you can see from my opinion which of those amendments I think is more important. But it's just like, this is clearly like, if you're like, okay, it's a fraud case, sure, but isn't your best defense to go after this on First Amendment grounds and not on Second Amendment grounds? I don't get it.
Well, I mean, the thing is, if the NRA wanted to stay intact in New York State, okay, you know, the answer is you don't have fraudulent activities at the head. You clear it out, and then you continue on. I mean, if you truly believe in the NRA's mission, right? And we're not going to go down that road. I think the Ducks Unlimited is probably better if someone's actually a sportsman, but I'm not going to go there. Okay. You know, because the NRA is, I'm obviously going to get upset.
Yeah.
Here's the thing. If you're running a nonprofit and it's a nonprofit advocacy organization, it's actually not hard to not be a ripoff artist, you know, and there's all these guideposts in place. Right. You know, and if it's an 803c6 and you're like running a chamber of commerce style thing, right, which is a bunch of companies, right?
The thing that I don't understand about all of these,
of acceptable accounting practices.
Okay, it is easy in those positions for you to get a lot of money. And I'm not talking about a corrupt sum of money. That's the thing that I always find hilarious is it's the greed motivator. Every one of those dudes could pull a $500,000 a year salary out of this thing, and nobody's gonna blink. But they embezzled like $30 million or something. That's the allegations. Like, be reasonable with your crime, and then nobody notices. And I guess everybody's just jealous because, you know, we see, well, you know, what, Putin is worth $250 billion. Who knows how much money Trump is going to end up profiting off of his presidency by the time you look at his family net worth a decade from now. But don't be greedy. Just be greedy. Don't be like obvious about it.
Don't be grossly greedy. Just be regular, shitty greedy.
Right.
Listen, I don't know, man. So long and short of it is, like, what kills me about the NRA story is it's Oliver North who blew the whistle, and I'm like, Oliver
really?
North. Yeah, I mean,
that's even
it's like
better.
when you're too corrupt for Oliver North, the guy who was selling arms
Yep.
to some Middle Eastern country.
You mean a patriot,
well-
a true patriot.
To send stuff over to the Contras. I don't know if have you been to Costa Rica? They have something they call the Oliver North Highway because they had to build a highway to get things across the country to Nicaragua for the guy. It's like to smuggle guns along the highway because it
Also,
was too rough of a ride.
After Oliver North spilled the beans on that whole thing, why would you have him in your organization
Right?
and think you
No,
wouldn't
hold
talk
on.
at some point?
He didn't spill the beans on the Iran Contra affair. He was the guy who was spilled the beans on, right? So everyone's like, "Oh no."
Well, yes and no.
It
It feels like
yes
he
and
might have
no.
had some accomplices in higher places.
Oh, for sure. But it's
mean,
not like he was
he's
the one
certainly-
spilling the beans to Congress
Well,
and bringing the Contra affair.
After he got caught, he was.
No,
For sure
no.
he was.
He was. I was following
Yes.
orders. I'm not going to talk about this. This is a matter of national
I was
security. And they're
was following him on Twitter back in 1990, and I gotta tell you. All right, folks.
Anyway,
Let's go away. It's been a chat. Let's see. Thanks.
It's been a rat hole. This is a terrible
This
episode.
is the worst episode ever. But did you see? Somebody asked for the orange pineapple hug. So how about if today's keyword is genetic Martian, and whoever is the first person to post genetic Martian in the comments gets a hug. That will never actually happen.
I am so confused. Is this like a thing in the Discord that I missed?
No, we said this at the end.
I don't know what you're talking about.
At the end of an episode, like 2 episodes ago, I said whoever says the words orange pineapple in comments gets a hug, and somebody did it. So I think it was a Peter was the name. Anyway, so yeah, genetic Martian, earn your hug, Jake or Elon or Peter. Goodbye, Chris DeBona.
Goodbye, Mr. Malda.
Goodbye, Rob Roseboom.
See you later.
Let's see. This has been episode 495 of Geeks in Space. I'm Rob Commander Taco Malda, and thank you for watching. If you are there, I am stunned.